Assalamu alaikum and hello. Welcome to Influenced, a podcast by Amina, the Muslim Women's Resource Centre. For those of you who are new to the podcast, welcome. And for those of you who have tuned in before, thank you for joining us again and welcome back. My name is Safa and I'm one of the hosts of the podcast. And I have with me today my co-host who will introduce herself.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Mariam and I'm the Chief Executive of Amina, Muslim Women's Resource Centre.
This is episode 2 of our discussion on misogyny. Part 1 is linked in the comments section. In the first episode, we broke down the word misogyny and how it impacts Muslim and minority ethnic women. And it was quite a heated and passionate discussion, so we really hope that you will check it out in the links in the comments section. So please do give it a watch or a listen. And for today's episode, we have with us 2 very special guests. We have Shaheen Baber and Nadeem Ishaque, who will be offering a male perspective. Both of them have had extensive experience with working with Muslim and minority ethnic men in the community, so we're really, really pleased to have them with us today. Shaheen Baber was a superintendent with Police Scotland and who is now the Hate Crime Policy Officer at Glasgow City Council. And Nadeem Ishaque is a therapist and is also one of the founders and directors of Urban Community Project. So welcome to the podcast and thank you so much for joining us today. In today's episode, we will be looking at misogyny, how it impacts Muslim and minority ethnic women, but also your experiences of working with minority ethnic men and what challenges you've had with working and maybe some of their, if there have been some challenging attitudes, how you've dealt with those challenging attitudes and how we can also work together to create a positive change. So thank you so much for joining us today and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What are maybe some of the practical examples that both of you might have seen in terms of misogyny playing out? And there's a lot of Muslim social media influencers as well that have that kind of messaging of, women should be at home, women shouldn't talk publicly, women shouldn't be seen, especially Muslim women. So do you feel in your experience that the men that you've worked with have aligned with any of those attitudes? And if so, why?
Can I go first? I'm just thinking of a particular case. I currently work with a young man and he's 27 years old. He's from a Pakistani background. I've known him for a number of years. It's from an Islamic psychology perspective, it's a lot of it is linked to the nafs, so what you feed it. Social media is something that we jump into very quickly. It's people like Andrew Tate. There's some influencers from our Muslim community as well that talk a lot of nonsense, to be honest, on social media, especially about women. I think with this case, he's been through a lot of trauma. He's been through a lot of abuse from his parents, and he's seen his father kind of beat up his mum. He doesn't have any sisters. It's 3 brothers. There was also some link to the LGBT community with one of his family members, and that exacerbated the abuse at home, which he witnessed and was part of it as well. However, one of the key reasons why he comes to see me in the clinical room, in the therapy room, before that I was working somewhere else. He was an addict, and that's where he first met me. It's about kind of learning his behaviours from the past, where he has become quite violent, under the influence of drugs, alcohol, under the influence of certain people in his company, and going online as well and searching these people to feed his ego, to say that, look, this is absolutely right, what I'm thinking. So these negative thoughts and negative core beliefs that I have, they're helping me to become violent, to become abusive, to, think that I am better than women, or women are below me.
So he's trying to justify his behaviour.
Yeah. My father is correct. He's right. My brother is correct.
Yeah.
There's no need for my brother to be with women, to be married to women. But there's no wonder why my brother is with another man.
So in saying that, I'm just going to bring Shaheen in here. Do you think it's maybe one of those things where men don't want to give up their power, because if they are, kind of that sexist society, that misogynistic society does put women at a disadvantage. And one thing that we often speak about is that we feel like in our communities, men then hold that power, and a lot of them don't want to give that away. So it's exactly that example that you've just used, Nadeem. It's in their favour to have those beliefs sometimes because it gives them that power.
I agree with that. What Nadeem's example is showing me is that a male advantage and the male supremacy in that case example. But what it shows me in the bigger picture for many men, young men especially, is almost like an identity crisis. If you aren't even sure of who you are as an individual, and you're not comfortable with yourself, and then society pressures that are on you as a male, how to perform, how to provide for your family, how to take care, how to be responsible, and you're not able to achieve that in your own identity, then you fall into that, in my view. Some of them fall into that trap of saying, okay, how do I improve my lot? Well, religion justifies me to suppress women, or society says this is the way I have to behave, so my mother is being treated this way, that's the way it should be, etc., etc. So I think there is an identity. One of the things in my experience I find is that if young men are comfortable in themselves, they are sure of who they are, their own identity and their own fairness, then the misogynistic or sexist behaviour is far less. The other part to that is, in my view, again, is your own, again, it's identity. Alpha males, the bullying. So it's not even bullying of females, but actually other men. So you've got the alpha males. But then if you've got men that are more empathetic, more understanding, more open-minded, or is it a, evolution? When you're past that stage of fight or flight and you've become more in tune with yourself and, like I say, more empathetic, you're able to rise above and see that actually that's wrong. The way I'm behaving towards females, colleagues at work, in the family, that's wrong. And there are men out there that behave that way. But then there's others that we're talking about, the alpha males perhaps, that actually, no, I'm the dominant male, this is my behaviours, this is the way, I'm in charge, you do what I tell you.
Yeah, and that traditionalist, is that really is kicking off in social media, especially in our kind of Islamic podcast bros that you see. They really are kind of saying that the corruption to society is feminism, and that the only way to restore almost like the order to society is the alpha male kind of the traditionalist roles that women should be taking. Any thoughts on that, Nadeem?
Yeah. I was just going to add, it's interesting that you used the word power. It was a volunteer, he's older than me. I remember he said to me that, do you know, Nadeem, that men and women are at war at each other, with each other, whether it's husband, wife, brother and sister, mum and son, etc. And it kind of got me really reflecting on that. Gender, whether it's male or female, both ways, it's if you see somebody who's dominating, if you see somebody who's a white middle-aged man who's a chief executive of a huge organisation, and you have someone like me walking into that room, my colour, my presence is already there. So you know that I know that I'm at a disadvantage. That's power as I think minority man. So, but at the same time, internally, there's why should I feel insecure? So sometimes when we look at it from that perspective, that lens, that power play, or that addiction to I am better than you, or I'm better than you because I'm a man, I'm better than you because because of my skin colour, there's underneath it there's usually a huge insecurity.
Can I, Mariam, just add to what you were saying about online, with the sort of some of the Islamic influencers, and go back to traditions and go back to you know, females in their place and male in their place in society. You see that in the far right as well.
Yeah.
The sort of kind of extreme conservatism as well, you know, so it doesn't necessarily happen just in the minority ethnic communities or the Muslim
No, not at
communities,
all.
because when you look at the far right ideology, there's a section in there that Western society is being corrupted by Western women as well because of the way they behave. So in my understanding of it is wherever there's males and wherever there's females in whatever society and throughout history, you're going to have sexism and misogyny. What do we do about it in the 21st century, in 2025, and moving forward to what they did 100 years ago in all societies is the question. And the big challenge is online influencing in social media. That is uncontrollable. And the only way to manage that, you know, jumping to a solution, is education. And if we make our young men and young women better trained and made aware of this issue, the better it will be for society. But I have to emphasise, this isn't just a male problem or a female problem, it's both. Because you'll agree, hopefully, that a lot of the sexist problems and misogynistic problems are women. And that's controversial what I've just said there, but let me explain.
Well, they do say that the people who voted for Donald Trump were women.
No, but it's in the family environment. So young men who are brought up in the family structure, I've experienced and I've seen that the grandmother,
of course,
or the mother would say, this is the way you should be treating your wife. That why are you letting her work, or why are you letting her have male friends? You know, that influence is what I'm talking about.
But the patriarchal structures, what we've said is that when you have patriarchal structures which, you know, keep women at a disadvantage, women are almost like the kind of bearers of keeping that structure alive. And that's what we've always said, but it is rooted in male power, you know, so regardless of whether it's a woman doing it or a man doing it, I think you're right.
So to clarify, I'm not blaming women.
Don't worry, we understand.
But what I'm trying to say is, as a society, that what we are brought up with, what we are trained by our family and peers and our culture, females in that role, absolutely, it's a male-dominated structure historically, but to keep it going, male and females have part that they play. I can't understand sometimes, in you know, sometimes grandmothers or mothers in relation to their sons and daughter-in-laws, or even their own daughters, you know, that they still perpetuate that model, whereas they're the ones should be saying no to their sons. No, you can't treat your wife like that. No, she has rights, etc. That is something that I think culturally could be improved on as well. We're talking about, you know, in the past, you know, we're talking about mosques and, you know, where young men attend, and it's good, but it's just as important for the females, I think.
So talking about kind of these kind of community institutions like mosques or whatever, what do you feel like the role is that women play in those mosques or those kind of community settings at the moment? Muslim and BME women, do you think they have a lot of power?
No.
In those places?
No.
Why is that? Why do you think, how do you think we do not have any power there at the moment?
Because you're not in them.
Yeah.
As simple as that. You're not present, you're not visible. Specifically, like...
do you think that's intentional? Do you think that's been intentional by design, by the men?
But I think looking at all faiths, if you look at the specifically BME faiths, if you look at the gurdwaras, you look at the mosques, you look at the even Christians, churches, etc. From my own experience, women don't really have much power. They don't have influence compared to men.
Well, I'll add to that as well. First of all, the mosques, you're talking about female influence. There is hardly any space, in my view, that Muslim women are able to influence. However, one thing I'll just clarify, is a subcontinental minority ethnic culture that we're talking about. The Pakistani, the most dominant Muslim community in Scotland, Indian Sikhs, etc. But I have to say that I have experienced a lot more female participation in Sikh gurdwaras. And I've visited many over my time, and they're part of the committees, they're part of the seva in the classes. In fact, a number of years ago, I think the first time I went with some police officers, and it was a Sikh lady that showed us comfortably around the Gurdwara and explained the religion. So why is it that they can, as a religion
I think gender equality
open?
is quite big in their religion, and I think they emphasise that, and you're right, you can definitely see that.
But gender equality is also big in Islam as well. It's just how it's viewed by cultural.
Exactly. It's how it's interpreted, and I think this is the issue, that this is what we're always trying to come to.
Like, okay, like recently we did some work. I was involved with some work with Sacred, and they had some people come overseas. And one of the questions that they asked the scholars, and I was sitting in the space, was that where are the Scottish female scholars? And there was no answer for it. And it was a good question. It was from Dr. Ingrid, and she, like what she was pointing out at is that if you want a positive female Islamic space, you want females to influence, then where are your female scholars? Why are you not putting effort into that? And I think that it's a question to kind of ponder on, and it's something that we don't have any female scholarship when it comes to in perspective to the Muslim community.
But leadership in general, what we find is that in Amina, what's taught us is that there's lots of women in our community, and it's not just the women in Amina. In fact, I would say our previous board members or whatever, they are women that are very influential, really good at governance, really good at leadership, but yet they've been completely shut out and silenced out. They found their space in Amina and maybe places like Al Mizan where they can kind of be women, but it's just a shame that our Muslim and predominantly male-dominated institutions don't realise that there's a big skill set that they've got in these women, and that's shut out.
Just adding to yourself, Nadeem, that the leadership in mosques would recognise that actually you could still have your own space, but you must, for a healthy society, healthy community, open up these spaces for the 50% of the community.
Yeah. And we've spoken a lot about mosques, but the mosques maybe just be like a small part of the other different Islamic organisations that are out there, or Muslim-led organisations. And there has been some movement lately with Muslim Council of Britain having like Sarah Muhammad as one of their leaders. But when a female leader does take that position, she's under the microscope. She's criticised, or she can be taken less seriously than obviously her male counterparts. And even my own experience of speaking with young women, I'm like, look, you guys are amazing. Go lead, go put your name down and represent. And they're all like, we're just going to get moaned at. We're going to get criticised. People are going to degrade us. We don't want to put ourselves through that. So it's maybe looking at educating women as well and trying to, which is what we do a lot in our work, is trying to really encourage them and I guess break away from that cycle as well, and empowering them. This
is like, I suppose, one thing from yourselves as men. Do you think the men in our community realise that the level of issues that our women in our community are going through? So an example of that would be, do you think they realise the high levels of abuse and domestic abuse that women are going through? Because we feel like in our community, especially the men, they don't quite get it. They don't realise this is bad. You know, and I'll give you an example. If you look at like the femicide census, which is a census that's done with all women that have been killed by male violence, not just domestic abuse, but male violence in general. And the census for 2022 came out, and if you look at the list, you'll be surprised at the number of Muslim names that are on that list. And this is women that are killed in the UK. Do you think our community and the men especially get how common and how widespread abuse against women is?
I'm quite comfortable saying no, absolutely not. They have no understanding of, generally, they have no understanding of the amount of abuse that goes on against females and against, obviously, Muslim women. One of the advantages I have in that fact is because I've been a police officer, I've seen the amount of domestic abuse cases and, the controlling behaviours, forced marriages and honour-based abuse. So I've seen it, and I only see part of it because of the areas of policing that I worked in. So I know it's there. It's a massive problem. And but again, this is traditions in our culture of putting hiding things within the family, or even within the family members don't know what's going on with their brothers and sisters or cousins or extended family members. So hiding it, if you're experiencing it, or if you're the perpetrator, or it's in your family, is a cultural trait, is it not? You know, so, but to answer your question, no, I don't think they understand as general. It's only when you're an activist or you're working in an area of business or therapy, for example, or counselling, that you actually realise, oh my God, this is a big problem.
I think there needs to be much more awareness around like how much abuse women endure from men. And if we've got statistics, we've got evidence, there's not enough of that coming out. I know Amina does the solid work around that, and there's other women's aid organisations, but how many of them are going to like a crowd of men and saying these things, especially within our community? It's very low, and that's something that we need to probably do more work around.
It's even difficult to get men in a room for this subject.
But I just wanted to come in and say, I suppose, looking at these kind of misogyny workshops, and I know that we would jump to violence against women, but really what we were doing in Amina and what our project was about was looking at where these kind of behaviours came in and, how did this all start? And it really does begin with sexism and misogyny and etc. So when you're kind of thinking, well, what does misogyny look like and why is it relevant and whatever? But really in the last few years, the fact that these podcast bros have really taken off and the amount of, we're seeing how much they've blown up on social media and their actual viewpoints are worrying. They're very worrying. And I think a lot of men, it would be in their favour to follow these guys because it's easy and it's what they're saying or whatever as well. But for us anyway, the prevalence of that abuse and the way women are treated, and what we're trying to say in our community is, let's go back to the basics and say, where does this all start from? How do we undo it?
I would just say it's conditioning. Social media, these podcasts, these bros that you were talking about. This is I mean, for example, look at Charlie Kirk who just got shot.
Yeah.
He was conditioning the world with his rhetoric, with his far right views. He's a white man, and it was a white man that killed him. However, he there was a lot of people that were following him, especially young people, men and women both. Interestingly, and what is going on there? He's conditioning the public to come from his view. So he's feeding people, going back to what I was saying earlier on, he's feeding that part of the nafs, that ego, that human condition that every single one of us have, that see what this person is saying, it's like a sugar rush for me. This is exactly what I'm craving. And in the same way with the Muslim community, with these people that are virtually talking crap about women, it's a conditioning, it's a way of getting views, it's a way of getting money in for them. I mean, I've seen some podcasts, not from the Muslim community, but non-Muslim community, where they have women who are dressing very provocatively, but the men are being misogynist. They're talking down at them the way but they're bringing them on, and there's money involved. But the views are the people, the everyday layman people that are watching this, and you'll get different people looking at that in a different perspective in different ways. And it does turn into violence against women 100%. It does get there, and like you said about the evidence that you shared.
But so can those smaller microaggressions that happen in the house as well. Like, okay, it might seem really harmless, that messaging of, you know, your brother can be out until, say, 11 p.m, but you have to be in the house by 7. You have to do this for your dad. You have to do this for your brother. All of that messaging might not seem that harmful at the time, but they lead to those kind of behaviours that Miriam's talking about, and we see it.
Yeah. I agree with you, but the only thing I'll say is that the conditioning comes from both male and female. Yeah. There's a lot of auntie-Gs, there's a lot of mother-in-laws. I mean, you've done amazing work around that. So there's, again, it's to do with the class system, to do with the rulings in the home. What Shaheen was talking about earlier on about there's certain women, even sometimes to this day, I get surprised at that the things that certain older women that are Muslim, the things that they say to their daughter-in-laws or their daughters, and then the way they treat them. Like I still, to this day, I still get surprised when it comes to relationships, how the mum expects that their son doesn't need to get up and pick up, you know, wash the dishes or have a glass of water. That still exists in 2025. And
absolutely.
the
we
whole
see it all the
expectation
time.
is on the girls.
Yeah.
And I'm a father of 3 girls, and it frustrates me because I'm like, come on, man. Like, for you to even expect that to this day, and you know, we're talking about violence against women, misogyny, etc. That's coming from another woman who's conditioning her son.
And I bet that your girls are quite empowered. I suppose it's one of those things about how would you feel if there is another guy that they meet and that's how they are expected to now suddenly be. How would you deal with that? You know, is that thing about you, wait a minute here, you know, you're not going to put my daughter in a box. I think we've all kind of got daughters in around this table, and it's kind of like, you know, the way we've kind of raised our daughters to be is being quite empowered, quite vocal or whatever as well. And it would be a bit of a shock, I think, for them to actually deal with the other hand. And the other thing, that issue that you both have said, we find it really hard to engage with the men, right? What do we do? How do we get this message out to the men? How do we try and get them to engage? But how do we get them to realise that this is actually going on? Because there is a disbelief about even violence against women, and misogyny is so little understood, even sexism in our community. I don't think, it's almost like, I feel like the men in our community don't really see it as an issue. It's not like a big thing for them. It's not a big deal. So when we want to talk about it, I think if Amina didn't talk about it, nobody would be talking about it. But how do we get the men round the table to realise what's going on and to engage?
So we did a project, men's project, for about a year, men's coffee club, and it was really interesting. And we did bring in topics, different topics. Didn't call it like misogyny, or spoke about, you know, violence against women, brought the subject up, mentioned yourselves as well. I think I spoke to Safa about this when we did the misogyny workshops with myself and Shaheen. There's a lot of insecurity between men when you have them in a group setting. It takes a lot of time to even get a group of men to trust each other, to open up and talk about what they really think, and what's inside and how they feel about that. That takes time. I think you do need men. You need men like ourselves to be working with us, the ones that do understand this sector and understand that this is a huge problem. I mean, I've had other guys say to me, "You don't understand what it's like because you don't have a son. You don't get it." That's what they'll say to me. So I'm in there in that kind of arena, challenging them, battling them. Sometimes even in the past they've said to me that you're weak as a man because you're taking sides. I've said stuff in the radio in the past where I've said that these are my views on feminism, here's my views on patriarchy, etc. And they're like, "No, you're not one of us." And these are Muslim men in the past that have said this to me. Very like well-known people.
Yeah.
But I think we need to talk more. I think we need to discuss these things a lot more. But you need to have courage, and you need to be able to be okay with your own insecurities as well.
And Shaheen, if I can just bring you in, because you've worked with the community, and I think that you've worked really hard to always make sure, I would say that we've always said in the Amina office, we feel like you've really tried to include the women anywhere you've gone. That's always quite a rare trait sometimes within our community. What do you think about trying to get the men round the table, how hard it is for them to actually talk about these topics and actually realise the issues that are going on in our community?
Yeah, it is one of the most difficult things to do. Working with many different minority ethnic groups over the years at senior level within the police as well. Many a time over the years I've said to senior police officers that we'll need to find ways to engage with the Muslim women. Police in Scotland was always good at engaging with the various community groups, but they could only engage with the groups that exist. And if there's no female groups that exist, or if there's no female influence in mosques, etc., they could only deal with the male-dominated groups that are engaging with them in relation to Islamophobia, in relation to hate crimes, for example. So you have to push the powers to say you actually have to go out looking for, and I used to call them the communities within the communities. So you're looking at the minority community, but then you have to look into the actual minority within that minority community, which obviously, females or students, for example, or young people. So it is very difficult to get men in a room to talk about these subjects. So the only way to do it, or the way I've been able to do it, is the already existing subject matters. So I'll give you one quick example. A number of years ago, a Muslim group that was engaging with the police over a hate crime in relation to extremism. So they engaged at a senior level for a couple of years. I've managed to set up meetings with senior police officers with this group or so. After a couple of meetings, I had to whisper to them. I said, "Look, it's all going good. You're going to have regular meetings with senior police officers." I says, "But you need to look at yourself, and I'm just giving you a tip. You are 7 Pakistani men over the age of 50. I was younger than 50 then. I was comfortable to say that you're over the age of 50. You need to look at yourself. You need to kind of open up. You need to have females involved, some younger people involved, so that you can legitimately engage with senior police officers."
And what was the reaction?
No, they understood it. To me, obviously, they said, "Yep, no, we're thinking about that." And to be fair, that group over the next year to 2 years, they did involve females, Muslims, in the group, and they were open to expanding. How they did it was another question. Who did they go to? How did they get the right people? Did they have a voting system? Did they have application forms, or was it people selected? But that's another problem.
Yeah.
But the point is that actually, if you are able to pin people down, they know that there's a problem.
And this is the kind of issue I think me and Safa have experienced this as well. Whenever we go to a lot of these kind of public events, especially if there's MPs or politicians, we find that a lot of the men will actually just push us aside and go right to the front, and we're right at the back, not out of choice, but that kind of thing, uncomfortableness. You're not going to push people out the way and try and get to the front or whatever. And I remember once that you and me, you might not remember, we were at an event, and I was thinking, these men are just pushing right past us and going right to the front and want all the spotlight or whatever. And it was just a shame that we didn't see any of them go, "Oh, do you know what, our sisters are here from other organisations, give them space." Women are not usually that kind of way where they're going to push right past to the front. But that was just kind of, I suppose, representative of how it always is, that we have to push for that space every time.
Well, again, that's I don't know if that's a good metaphor of what women have to do, is actually push for that space. But that's going back to the cultural space. is that cultural influences from that patriarchal society that some of the minority communities are part of.
Shaheen, as we go forward, how do you think we can break the cycle around misogyny and sexism with men?
Well, there's a number of things we can do as we go forward. One of the most important areas for me is education in schools, and this is not just for minority ethnic communities. This is for everybody.
Boys in general, yeah.
Young boys are never taught how to behave around young girls, and young girls aren't ever taught how to act in front of young boys and young men. Having gone to school, in primary school and secondary school in Glasgow myself, I was in the education system, never taught how to behave. It was society that influenced my behaviour towards the opposite sex. The dangers now is social media that influences that. So an important area for me would be the education curriculum in Scotland to look at misogyny and sexism, how to improve the behaviours as we go forward. The second part for me is communities themselves. So whether it's the Muslim communities, the African communities, ethnic communities or religious communities, Sikh communities, etc., whatever label you want to put it on, the influencers within those communities, for us, for communities of Muslim communities, is our Islamic scholars. So there are many Islamic scholars that are in our communities that are very positive, that are very fair. You have programs like the iSyllabus program that explains the women's rights within Islam. And it's not the word of mouth imams that are coming from a different school of thought that then bring in misogyny and sexism within that religious aspect. So education in schools and education in our Islamic centres or religious centres are both important. That'll bring the change, in my view, as we go forward.
Yeah, I think Shaheen's absolutely right. I think doing more of this, I think having more men that are from similar communities sitting with women that are from similar communities and talking about these difficult conversations and discussions and asking, how can we move forward and find solutions? I think personally, it's an individual thing. I think individually, all of us need to play a part and keep an open mind. You mentioned Zara, for example, great leader, local from Glasgow. We need more women, and men do have to play a part in that by picking up women, like giving them a hand and saying, look, now you take the centre stage. And I think that's something that all of us can do, every single one of us individually.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much for both of you to come on. I think for us, we've realised that the work that we do around violence against women, misogyny, whatever, we can't tackle that on our own. We do need the men in our community. And for you both to kind of come on and speak about this topic, it's not easy in our community for like some Muslim men or some ethnic minority men to come on and speak about misogyny bigger in our community. But what I would say is that just like other big, powerful institutions can't do without the women, we can't do without the men when it comes to trying to tackle this problem. And we can't do it on our own. And we do need men like yourself to kind of stand up and see what the issues are and teach the young men that you're doing and the work that you're doing. And I think for yourself, Shaheen, as well, is continuing to make sure that women are represented in these spaces if you're seeing us not there as well. I think that is what helps, and not everyone is going to take the approach that you've taken or you've taken to say, well, what about women, and this is misogyny, this is sexism. It's not something that we're going to solve overnight, but I think, these podcast series was the start of a conversation, to start something that we can start thinking about these things, balancing out all the kind of toxicity that we're seeing online with racism, misogyny and everything else, to say there's a balanced point of view, this is the right kind of point of view, and this is what we need to make sure that in Scottish society women and men can thrive and do the best that they possibly can as well. So thank you so much, both of you, for coming on our podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.